Welcome to the Karlie and Brooke channel. In this video, we're going to talk about one of my favorite writing topics, which will completely revolutionize your writing. And it is called deep point of view. If you've never heard of it before, it is a way to drop your reader right into your character's head and make them feel like they're there. They're living the scene. They're in your fantasy world or whatever world you're writing, and they are in the fire. They are driving that car, and it pulls your reader into the scene and makes them excited to be there. You really feel the difference when you read a piece that's in deep point of view. One of the more popular books that's written in a deep point of view is Hunger Games. So if you've read Hunger Games, the writing is beautiful. And it's one of my absolute favorite stylistic ways of writing. It is not a required way to write, so if you don't like it, you can jump away from this video and not learn a thing about it, and you will be okay. But I like it. I think in my experience, readers liked it. Other writers have liked it in my writing, and I'm going to pass my wealth of information to you. So let me start with the story. So when I first started writing, I joined a writing group of really stellar writers, and a few of them had been to creative writing programs where they learned about writing from professional writers, and a lot of them did internships with professional writers, and they critiqued my work and they taught me the importance of deep point of view, how I could use it, and what I was doing wrong. And I learned it from getting critiqued. So that is one way that I'm going to teach it to you, because I found that to be incredibly helpful. So let me talk about some of the things that you might want to do. So some tips when you're writing deep point of view before we go to the critiquing, so you know what I'm talking about. When you write in a deep point of view, what you really want is your reader to be sitting in your character's head, right? So they will only read about the things that your character would notice. So for example, there are things that I'm doing with my hands right now, and I'm probably not paying a whole lot of attention to whether my fingers are twitching or whether I'm doing a little dance here, unless I'm very purposefully thinking about doing this dance, right? So there are things that you do, like blinking and blood pulsing through your veins. Maybe you would notice that, maybe not. So when you are writing in a deep point of view, you only want to write about the things that your character would notice about themselves. So they will notice things in front of them, they'll notice things about other people, but they might not notice things about themselves unless it's something that stands out in that particular scene. So for example, when you're writing, you might not be like, well, I have blonde hair and green eyes, and I wear sweatpants, and doing a description like that is the complete opposite of deep point of view, because your character probably isn't thinking about what they're wearing in their sweatpants. Unless somebody's looking at them and they notice, like, oh, they're looking at my sweatpants, huh? And that's something that you would probably bring into your internal dialogue. A lot of other keys to deep point of view is, writing with more active voice instead of passive voice. A lot of the basic principles of writing will apply to deep point of view and make your deep point of view stronger. So we are going to critique a paragraph that I wrote a long time ago. Don't judge. I have improved immensely since then. I just didn't feel comfortable doing it to another writer's writing, so I had to do some digging to pull up a piece of work that I worked on a long time ago that had plenty of examples that I could just tear apart. So let me grab my computer and I will read you the original paragraph, and we are going to critique it. Here we go. Not even the horizontal lines of the lake at night soothed me, or the bright reflection of the moon. The water was calm, undisturbed. It was intolerable. I ran to the bank and shouted at the heavens, savagely kicking stones and throwing rocks to disturb the water. I smiled only when ripples and waves began to appear across the once still surface. My ragged breathing interrupted the serene silence hanging in the air. So we have some passive voice in here. It was intolerable. The water was calm. They're not going to notice themselves smiling unless there's something that's actually making them think about it. So in this paragraph, I'm going to go over it again. We're going to go over a redeveloped paragraph and really feel the difference in the writing. So I added a few things to really pull the reader in. I added, I added a noise. I added maybe something that's going on internally, like they're feeling the heat, the anger in their chest. The waves broke against my toes. We could probably add some cold sensation. I didn't do that. And then I added, and I smiled at the end. First off, because the and I smiled part is very important, I thought it would be more impactful at the end. And if they're doing it at the end, they're probably recognizing like, like this time, like I feel better now. So here is the revised version. The horizontal lines of the lake and bright reflection of the moon should have soothed me. The water barely rippled. Anger boiled in my chest as I ran to the lake. My heavy footfalls like drums in my ears. My ragged breathing tore through silence, and as I kicked a stone and tossed in a rock, waves broke against my toes. And I smiled. My ragged breathing tore through silence is auditory. We're going to pull in as many of the senses as we can. My heavy footfalls like drums in my ear. That almost feels to me like both auditory and like a sensation, like they're feeling this. Anger boiled in my chest. We're getting the emotions in there. Horizontal line of the bright reflection of the moon. I love that because it's kind of the opposite of everything around them is the opposite of what they're feeling, and I love that contrast. The water barely rippled. That's at least active. And then and I smiled. You get in this paragraph, you get a lot of internal, even without the internal being there, but internal is always a good thing. Because let's see, I took out the it was intolerable because that was passive and I felt like it didn't really need to be there. We're getting a lot of how she's feeling or how they are feeling in the paragraph around it. That doesn't really need to be there. To make the first paragraph even worse, it was intolerable, I thought. I ran to the bank and shouted at the heavens. Like, I'm shouting at the heavens. Like, it just makes you feel like you're standing off to the side and watching instead of like in my body and experiencing it. Okay, I have another one for you, and I really think that this will help solidify it in your head. So this is a scene that I took from my book, The Curse of the McCory, which I have not released yet. I'm going to read you a version that is of a particular scene that is not deep point of view. And I'm going to, as soon as I'm done reading it, I'm going to pick apart the lines and tell you why something isn't deep point of view. And then I'll read you a version where all of the stuff is cut out and it's a lot deeper and you'll feel it. So here we go. All right. In the flower store, there was an assortment of fresh plants, some in pots and others in cut and prime bouquets. The counter is worn, but clean and shining. I pour water into the vases and cut the stems of roses as an older woman sifts through flowers with a frown. She can't decide what to buy. I tuck a strand of hair behind my ear and hover a few feet away in case she needs me, but after a few long minutes, she still doesn't look up. She's too busy deciding which flower is the prettiest. Do you need help, I ask? As soon as I speak, she startles and gives me an apologetic smile. I'm trying to find flowers for my granddaughter's dance recital tomorrow morning. What do you think of roses? Roses are wonderful. Can I show you some of my favorites? I indicate a few bouquets I made yesterday that incorporate roses with a few other more unique flowers. Do you know her favorite color? She considers for a few minutes, after which she says purple. She likes purple and green. I smile. I know just what to get her. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. So in the flower store, this feels like a little bit like summarizing instead of like dropping us right in the scene. It gives us like a zoomed out effect, and sometimes this can be good for transitions. So if you're being very purposeful about it, it's okay, but it's not necessarily considered deep point of view. If you wanted deep point of view, you'd be right in the character's head. So also there was an assortment of fresh plants. That's what we call passive voice. So is okay sometimes, but sometimes it can be an indicator of passive voice. You just have to be careful about it and, be purposeful about how you use it. So Let's see. Let's look for another one. I pour water into the vases and cut stems of roses as the older woman sifts through flowers with a frown. She can't decide what to buy. She doesn't know what the customer is thinking. So this also brings us out of her head, because how could she possibly know that? I tuck a strand of hair behind my ear and hover a few feet away. Okay, when you're tucking a strand behind your hair or behind your ear, you don't always realize that you're doing that unless you're really thinking about it and doing that on purpose. It's probably more of like a reaction, or something you're doing in the back of your mind. You're not even really thinking about it. So sometimes leaving those things out of a passive or deep point of view is a good idea. Let's see. In case she needs me, but after several long minutes. So this is telling the passage of time rather than showing it. And that also brings us out of the character's head. So, I mean, I'm going to keep saying this again and again. Like when you're writing deep point of view, you want your reader in the character's head. You want them seeing things as the character is seeing them. You want the character feeling things as the character feels them. So you want a lot of like touch, tactile, sight, smell, sounds, internal dialogue. Like you want them sitting in the character's head as much as possible. So rather than telling us that several long minutes have passed, you want to show it. And we'll go over that in a minute. So she still doesn't look up. She's too busy deciding which flower is prettiest. Again, she doesn't know what the customer's thinking. So that pulls us back. That almost makes us feel like there's a narrator telling us what's going on. We're no longer in the reader or in the character's head. As soon as I speak, again, this is taking a step back, because it's kind of showing, or it's kind of telling us as soon as I speak instead of I'm speaking. It's not very immediate. You don't want to summarize or make it feel like it's not happening right now. Like we want to be there in the scene right now. So roses are wonderful. Can I show you some of my favorites? I indicate a few bouquets I made yesterday that incorporate roses with other more unique flowers. So there's no internal dialogue in here. We don't know what she's thinking. So when you're in deep point of view, like you want to be in the character's head, so you want to be hearing those thoughts. Do you know her favorite color? She considers for a few minutes, after which another hint of like events passing rather than being like present in the scene. She says purple. I smile. Would she notice herself smiling? I don't know, maybe, but you think about that. Is your character noticing herself smiling? I know just what to get her. So let's read a scene where all of this is taken out and where we're in the character's head, we're in a deep perspective. And you can really just feel the difference. So an assortment of fresh plants line the window, some in pots and others in cut and primed bouquets. The counter is worn but clean and shiny. I pour water into the vases and cut the stems of roses as an older woman sifts through flowers with a frown, as if she can't decide what to buy. So again, she's kind of thinking she knows what the grandma's doing, but she's not sure. So we're saying as if she can't decide what to buy. I hover a few feet away in case she needs me, but she doesn't look up. Do you need help? I ask. She startles and gives me an apologetic smile. I'm trying to find flowers for my granddaughter's dance recital tomorrow morning. What do you think of roses? I love roses. They have a dark fantasy vibe that reminds me of dark castles and ruby lips. I'd take them all home if I could. So there's the internal dialogue that we need. Roses are wonderful. Can I show you some of my favorites? I indicate a few bouquets I made yesterday that incorporate roses with a few other more unique flowers. Do you know her favorite color? Purple, the woman says. The wrinkles on her forehead soften as she smiles. So that's some descriptions that show us what the character is seeing, what she's observing. She likes purple and green. I can't think of two better colors to pair together. More internal dialogue. I know just what to get her. So you really want to be thinking about, when you're writing deep point of view, what is the character seeing? What is she perceiving? What is important to her? She's not going to walk into a room and notice everything about the scene. She's not going to notice like, oh, that door handle is gray or silver. She's going to only notice the things that she cares about and the things that make her feel something. And that is deep point of view. Please comment and let me know if I can make this video any better, if I can explain this any better. I would be happy to do that. And like, share, subscribe, ring the bell to be notified when our next video is up, and I'll see you on our next video. Thanks for watching.